January 14, 2025, News Report 1. On January 14, the U.S. Department of Justice released the final investigation report by Special Prosecutor Smith regarding former President Trump's attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. The report indicated that there is sufficient evidence to convict Trump. Had he not been elected as President of the United States, he would have been convicted for attempting to overturn the 2020 election results. The report shows that after losing the 2020 election, Trump spread false information about election fraud and pressured multiple state governments to refuse to certify the election results. Additionally, Trump attempted to block Congress's certification of Biden's victory by forging elector lists. These actions ultimately led to the January 6, 2021, Capitol riot, when Trump's supporters stormed the Capitol in an effort to prevent the formal certification of the election results. Furthermore, Smith's report also outlines Trump's illegal retention of classified national documents after leaving the White House in 2021. Two related lawsuits were filed in June and August of 2023. However, since Trump won the 2024 presidential election, these cases were dismissed. It is worth mentioning that Trump stated in a phone interview that he would immediately fire Smith if he assumed office. Smith submitted the final report to the Department of Justice on January 7 and resigned on January 10. News Report 2. According to the New York Times, Elon Musk will officially assume the role of U.S. Secretary of Efficiency on January 20. His office will be located in the Eisenhower Executive Office building next to the White House. Although the Eisenhower building is part of the White House complex, it is not the main building and mainly serves as office space for government staff. The report states that although Musk will serve as the Secretary of Efficiency, he may work as a special government employee. This designation means he will not receive a salary and will face looser financial disclosure requirements than regular public servants. This news has sparked intense discussion about whether Musk will use his innovative ideas to improve government efficiency. News Report 3. Bloomberg reports that TikTok and its parent company, ByteDance, must complete their divestiture by January 19. Meanwhile, related actions by the Chinese government have also attracted widespread attention. Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal report that Chinese officials have proposed different responses. Bloomberg's report reveals that the Chinese government suggests Elon Musk take over TikTok's U.S. operations and manage them jointly with Chinese authorities. The Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese officials are more inclined to sell TikTok to non-Chinese investors who have gained China's trust, like Musk, while retaining some equity stakes. Analysts believe these reports might be a smoke screen by the Chinese government to disrupt the response strategies of the U.S. government and businesses, including Trump's team and the current Biden administration. The goal seems to be temporarily alleviating the crisis around TikTok and retaining maneuvering space for the future. At the same time, some TikTok users are reportedly migrating to another Chinese social platform, Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book. However, some commentators argue this shift is unwise. The issues TikTok faces stem from its Chinese background, and Xiaohongshu would similarly be unable to avoid similar controversies. This migration to Xiaohongshu might be short-lived and unlikely to resolve the underlying problems. The future trajectory of TikTok still requires further observation of developments and responses from all parties involved. News Report 4. According to the U.S. website Global Firepower, GFP, the global military rankings for 2025 were released on January 14, showing the military power rankings of 145 countries. The top rankings are as follows. Top 3, the US, Russia, and China remain in the top 3 positions, with no changes. Top 6, India, South Korea, and the UK retain their positions. 7th to 10th, France rises 4 spots to 7th, Japan drops 1 spot to 8th, Turkey drops 1 spot to 9th, Italy remains in 10th place. Other rankings, Ukraine dropped from 18th last year to 20th, down from 15th 2 years ago. This decline is likely related to shortages in weapons and ammunition. Taiwan's ranking remains unchanged at 22nd, and North Korea also maintains its position. This ranking is based on evaluations of countries' conventional military equipment and war capabilities, without considering nuclear weapons. News Report 5. According to the Chosun Ilbo, South Korea's senior public officials' crime investigation office plans to carry out a second arrest operation for President Yoon Suk-yeol on January 15. The operation is expected to deploy 1,000 police officers, with 500 tasked with dealing with the presidential security staff's interference, and the other 500 focusing on arresting President Yoon and searching his official residence. South Korean police stated that if the presidential security staff obstructs the execution of the arrest warrant, relevant personnel will be arrested on the spot. To ensure the operation proceeds smoothly, the Public Affairs Office has requested assistance from the Ministry of National Defense and the Presidential Security Staff. The 55th Security Guard, responsible for securing the perimeter of the presidential residence, approved the Public Affairs Office's entry on January 14 to carry out the task. However, the Presidential Security Staff has taken a firm stance, stating they will respond according to the law to any actions deemed illegal. It remains uncertain whether this arrest operation will be successfully carried out, and developments are closely being watched. News Report 6. According to Yonhap News Agency, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff reported on January 14 that North Korea launched a short-range missile towards its eastern coast. The missile was fired from a region near the Chinese border and flew about 50 kilometers before falling into the Sea of Japan. This marks North Korea's second missile test this year. On January 6, North Korea launched a new type of medium-range hypersonic ballistic missile, but South Korea assessed that the test ended in failure. International political analysts point out that North Korea's missile launch at this time may be aimed at drawing attention from the international community, especially with the U.S. presidential transition approaching. North Korea has frequently conducted weapon tests in recent years, raising concerns within the international community. Additionally, there are reports that North Korea and Russia may be engaging in large-scale military cooperation, including sending military personnel to Russia and acquiring military technology. The international community is concerned that this technology may be applied to North Korea's missile development or other weapons programs, but the specifics of these arrangements remain unclear. News Report 7. The wildfires in Los Angeles are still not under control. To address this serious disaster, the U.S. federal government has recently launched a relief program to provide assistance and loans to disaster victims and affected businesses in Los Angeles. Disaster-affected residents can apply for grants through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Each household can receive a $770 emergency supplies grant, $43,600 for housing repairs and temporary relocation costs, and $43,600 for medical and disability expenses. However, applicants must first file property claims with insurance companies, and can only apply for additional assistance from the federal government if the insurance companies cannot cover the costs. Furthermore, affected residents and businesses can apply for low-interest loans from the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, to repair or replace damaged property. The loan interest rate is 2.3%, with a repayment period of up to 30 years, starting 1 year after the loan is issued. FEMA also provides temporary housing for homeless disaster victims, including travel trailers, prefabricated houses, or rental assistance. The amount of rental assistance is based on local market rents, and the duration of the assistance depends on the severity of the disaster and the needs of the victims. News Report 8. According to EP News, Taiwan's Legislative Yuan will begin discussing the general budget proposal on January 15. The Kuomintang, KMT, Legislative Caucus has proposed a reduction in the budget for the National Shipbuilding Program, cutting it from the originally planned 2 billion NT dollars to 1.8 billion NT dollars. This move is expected to delay the completion of the program by 2 years, potentially overlapping with the timetable of a People's Liberation Army, PLA, invasion of Taiwan. Additionally, the KMT lawmakers have requested that the Ministry of Defense report to the Legislative Yuan after the completion of sea trials for Taiwan's submarines, before deciding whether to continue funding the program. At the same time, the Taiwan People's Party has suggested a 3% reduction in the budget for Taiwan's military equipment and facilities. Such proposals to cut defense budgets have raised concerns among some in the public, who accuse the KMT and the Taiwan People's Party of weakening Taiwan's defense capabilities, potentially aligning with the PLA's interests, and even being criticized for acting as a fifth column. News Report 9. The Liberty Times reported that on January 13, the Fujian provincial government published its 2025 Government Work Report, which clearly outlined its goals for cross-strait relations. This year's focus is on engaging Taiwanese youth and first-time visitors from Taiwan's grassroots communities to the mainland in exchange programs and communications. The report mentions that Fujian will encourage grassroots Taiwanese residents and first-time visitors, referred to as the First-Time Visitors Group, to participate in various forms of exchange activities, promoting communication and cooperation with Taiwan. These activities will include setting up exchange centers to attract Taiwanese participation. In response, Professor Zheng Zhengbing of Yunlin University of Science and Technology pointed out that Fujian, as the front line of China's united front efforts toward Taiwan, is targeting Taiwan's vulnerable social groups, such as the youth and those who have never been to the mainland, in an attempt to influence these groups through united front tactics. He cautioned Taiwan society to remain vigilant, stating that such exchanges may have a propaganda camp nature and carry potential risks. News Report 10. According to Jimyan News, the National People's Congress, NPC, and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, will open on March 3 and March 5, respectively. Before that, local, 2 sessions, provincial and municipal level meetings, are being held to prepare for the national meetings. As of January 13 to 14, 9 provinces have held their sessions, with the remaining provinces and cities planning to hold theirs between January 15 to 25. Among the provinces that have held their sessions, most have set their 2025 economic growth targets at over 5%. For example, Hainan's target is 6%, Zhejiang and Hunan's targets are 5.5%, Fujian's target is between 5% and 5.5%, Beijing's target is 5.2%, and Tianjin, Hebei, Guangxi, and Heilongjiang's targets are around 5%. Local government work reports have also emphasized the importance of stimulating consumption and expanding domestic demand, seen as key measures to achieve economic growth targets. However, there is still uncertainty about whether China can meet these growth targets. Some commentators point out that, amid economic pressures and data transparency concerns, achieving these goals may present significant challenges. News Report 11. According to the New Island Daily on January 14, the Hong Kong Police National Security Division took the wife and son of Chung Kin-hwa, the former deputy CEO of the Hong Kong Civil Research, for questioning on whether they had any connection with Chung. Chung has been wanted by the Hong Kong government since he left for the UK in 2022. In December last year, the Hong Kong government issued a warrant for his arrest and offered a reward of 1 million Hong Kong dollars. Chung's family, especially his wife and third son, had remained in Hong Kong instead of accompanying him to the UK and later moved to different residences after Chung's wanted notice was issued. Analysts believe that if Chung Kin-hwa was aware of the danger when he left Hong Kong in 2022, he should have taken his family with him. The political and security situation in Hong Kong remains tense, and many fail to recognize the government's and police's strict, even extreme, measures, especially when handling political dissidents. The report also notes that individuals like Chung, once considered moderate, cannot avoid being targeted by the authorities. This serves as a reminder to Hong Kong citizens, especially those still holding illusions about the Chinese Communist government, to prepare for the worst and avoid passive responses. News Report 12. According to an Associated Press report on January 13, Starbucks announced a new policy for its North American stores, requiring customers to make a purchase before using seating and restroom facilities. Previously, Starbucks did not have a clear policy, and employees typically decided whether to allow non-paying customers to use these facilities. The issue became widely discussed after the 2018 Philadelphia incident, where Starbucks employees called the police on 2 African American men who were using seats without making a purchase. The incident was accused of racial discrimination. In response, Starbucks changed its policy to allow non-paying customers to use seats and restrooms. However, as the incident's controversy faded, Starbucks has now announced that customers must make a purchase to use the seating and restrooms. It is noteworthy that Starbucks China also has a similar policy, where non-paying customers are politely asked to leave, in line with the U.S. policy. News Report 13. According to Airline Ratings Global Safety Rankings released on January 14, 2025, Air New Zealand has been ranked as the safest airline in the world. Following closely are U.S. airlines, including American Airlines ranked second, and several other U.S. airlines ranked third and fourth. Virgin Airlines and other U.S. airlines are tied for sixth place. Other airlines ranked high for safety include Australian Airlines, Qantas, as well as Cathay Pacific, Qatar Airways, and Emirates Airlines, all tied for third. ANA, All Nippon Airways, ranked 8th, Finnair ranked 9th, and Alaska Airlines rounded out the top 10. News Report 14. On January 7, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck the Dingri area in Shigatse, Tibet, followed by several aftershocks. On January 14, two 3.0 magnitude aftershocks occurred, and on January 13, there were 8 aftershocks, with the longest reaching a magnitude of 5.0. Videos on Twitter show the strong shaking of tents and cooking equipment in the disaster areas when the earthquake occurred, leading to power outages. The Chinese government has implemented a full information blockade in the Shigatse and surrounding regions, only promoting news of timely rescue efforts. However, the actual situation in the disaster areas remains unclear. Videos on Twitter show a shortage of relief supplies, with some villages having only 2 tents and no warming supplies, and almost no food. The survivors are suffering from hunger and cold, and some villagers are carrying firewood to the disaster area for self-rescue. Despite the continuous delivery of relief supplies from across the country, local authorities have stopped accepting donations, and some netizens have been prevented from reaching the disaster areas by local government officials. This approach is seen as a common tactic employed by the Chinese government during natural disasters to cover up the true situation in affected areas.